Good morning. This is Stuart Battle with the LaRouche organization for January 11th, 2023. Now, the world continues to be gripped by an exceptionally dangerous situation. Um, as viewers probably know, the reporting that we've done on this issue of the very real threat of thermonuclear war between Russia and the United States continues to grow. Um, what's become clear in the recent days is that more weapons continue to be sent to Ukraine. Even some of the debates in Europe of the hesitancy of sending more and heavier weapons has in fact led to, in the case of Germany, sending certain tanks. So this continues to spiral out of control, as we have warned for many months now, in an event that really could be disastrous for the world. Um, and then what's additionally made dangerous, as many have probably heard and we have discussed thoroughly, is the lies from Western leaders. Most emphatically recently is the lies from former German Chancellor Angela Merkel and French President Francois Hollande about the lies that went into the Minsk Accords um, for Russia, for the discussion around peace in between Russia and Ukraine in 2014, 2015. Um, so we're in a situation that I think is very trying, um, and certainly is causing many good people and and honest people to be worried. And I think it's important to recognize that, and justifiably so, because of what such a lack of leadership exists in Western nations. Um, so to emphasize a little bit too, the Russian defense minister the other day made the point that Russia is continuing to increase and expand its nuclear triad, and that what he said, this was Sergei Shoigu, the Russian defense minister, is that this is key to Russia's sense of security and sovereignty and to guaranteeing those. So you're in a very dangerous world, um, which anyone who is not drinking too much hard eggnog um, will recognize. Unfortunately, we have far too many Americans and Europeans who are not recognizing that. Um, which, of course, is the question: where are the American people? Where are the supposedly bold and outspoken American people who should be standing up for the fact that billions of their dollars are going to fund a war which very likely could bring on their own destruction? Or the European people who ought to know better after having had two world wars on their territory in the last 100 years? Um, these are questions that should be posed to people. The cowardice of the West is front and center in the crisis that the world is facing today, and must be resolved somehow in some way, which I'm going to come back to. Now, what I want to really focus on is an event that took place yesterday that was called together by Schiller Institute founder Helga Zepp-LaRouche, who wanted to highlight this crisis of where the world stands in the wake of the lies of the European leadership, specifically what I mentioned with the Minsk Accords. And the question she posed is, how can Russia trust anyone in the US and Europe after what has been admitted, that in effect there never was an attempt to make peace in Ukraine or to strike any type of compromise with the Russians? So what now? That's the question. This was certainly made more clear in recent days by the Ukrainian defense minister, a fellow named Alexei Reznikov, who admitted that Ukraine is carrying out NATO's mission. That was his words. He said, "We're carrying out NATO's mission, but without shedding NATO's blood. It's our blood." So it's increasingly clear what the reality is, and we're in a situation where solutions are not only few and far between, they're virtually non-existent. Pathway out of this spiraling danger towards war is virtually non-existent. So the event that was held yesterday was I just want to make a plug for it, because I think it's a must watch for anyone who is concerned about these questions. Like I said, it was convened by Helga Zepp-LaRouche. She was joined by former weapons inspector Scott Ritter of the United States, former CIA analyst Ray McGovern of the United States, former retired general of France, Dominique Delouard, and retired colonel, also of France, Alain Corvez. And the discussion was very profound. It was very frank. It was very serious. The question of the absolute danger of what is, in fact, the potential ending of human civilization was discussed. Was very thoroughly, discussed from the standpoint of how we got to this point. But the question which Mrs. LaRouche kept coming back to is, well, what do you do? What do we do in a moment of crisis like this? And how do we maintain a level of potency instead of descending into despair, which I think is invaluable. And so what she stressed was that we're in a revolutionary situation where, yes, great crimes have been committed, great lies have been told, but at the same time, the Western citizens increasingly don't trust their governments. They increasingly don't believe the policies that are being enacted are for their benefit. And so we're really in a revolutionary situation where what's lacking is leadership. It's not that truth is lacking. It's that leadership is lacking to communicate the reality and lead people out of it. And I think that's really important, because that's the miracle that has to be created. So what Helga stressed was that we need a real mobilization. If there ever has been a time for a real mobilization of citizens around the world, it's now. We certainly shouldn't be made cynical by how stupid our neighbors are. We should do something about it. So this was very important. What I want to kind of conclude with is a story which I think will hopefully make a certain point. Last month there was a very major breakthrough in the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory around a successful net positive energy outcome for a fusion reaction, which some may have heard about, but this was the first time in human history where more energy output was gained than was put into a fusion experiment. And what was interesting about the Lawrence Livermore experiment was they used magnetic confinement in addition to their usual inertial laser confinement. So you actually had a combination of the two types of confinement for fusion experiments, and the result was entirely successful. Was at least pointed in the direction of high success. Now, what also happened? A few days ago, it was released that there was also a major breakthrough in China. China's East tokamak reactor, which is their most advanced fusion experimental reactor, also made a substantial breakthrough in their plasma technology. What they're calling their Super One is a new method of confining and utilizing a plasma state that supposedly gives more stability and a longer duration for the life of the plasma and a more efficient use of the plasma. So, why am I bringing this up? Why is this significant? Because we need China in the same way that we need Russia, and the way we need many other nations of the world, the way we need every other nation of the world. As we've discussed before, the development of fusion energy would mean untold benefits for mankind. Not just essentially, as was said back in the 1950s, electricity so cheap and abundant it would be more expensive to meter it than it would be to give it away for free. So the capability of actually ending poverty and solving energy poverty the world over. But in addition, it would transform mankind's relationship to the universe, to our galaxy, to being able to explore new areas of our solar system, galaxy, and beyond that previously were inaccessible to the human species. So this is why we need every nation on Earth to participate in something which is greater than their own national interests. It's in the interest of every Westerner to not just have a good and prosperous and collaborating Russia, China, and otherwise, but to resolve the problems of underdevelopment and poverty in Africa. It's a detriment to every nation to have so few capable, creative minds in a continent like Africa participating in these kinds of universal collaborative breakthroughs that would advance every nation on Earth. So anyways, just to come back to what I started with, this is why what Mrs. LaRouche has stressed, that namely the human species, inherently human beings, are good. And that is the basis for ending this war. That is the basis for any lasting peace order in the world. And in fact, that really is the basis and must become the basis for any anti-war movement, any successful anti-war movement. Because you're not just looking at the need for negotiations, even though negotiations are very crucial, and what we have brought up around the offer that the Pope has made is absolutely crucial to bring an end to this conflict and establish a new security and development architecture for the world. But you're not doing it simply to end the war. The avenue for doing it is that mankind is inherently good, and we can resolve our problems and resolve our differences because there is a higher platform, a higher unity which exists. If we can only have the leadership to recognize it and to have the vision to move and to organize others to do the same. So that's what I've got for you today. I want to thank you for tuning in. And I'll just end by encouraging you, if you haven't already, become a member of the LaRouche organization. I'm going to include a link in the description below where you can find out more and subscribe. And tell all your friends, get your friends involved, get family involved, help us mobilize, help us create a real movement, a real mass movement to stop this war drive and to have a new concept, a new vision of peace into the future. So thank you again, and see you soon.